こんにちは、なほです。
Hey, it's Matt.
カモンレディオでは私たちが運営しているオンラインの英語のプログラム、カモンラインについて英語で語っていく、ポッドキャストです。今日のゲストはですね、ロンドン在住のロバートです。
Yeah, we are very excited to have Robert on the podcast today because Robert has been very influential in our programs
Yep.
over the year, especially Come Online recently, where he's helped develop curriculum and run the program with us. And he's also a good friend of ours and a joy to work with. So we are very excited to have him on. Thanks for joining us, Robert.
Hello.
Hey, good to
Hey,
see you.
Robert.
Thank you. Great to be with you.
How are you? How was your Christmas? How was holidays?
Well, it's been pretty interesting. I think I will talk about London a bit later, but I think given how London is currently very much locked down, very different Christmas spent with my housemates rather than with my family, but still very good.
That's good.
That's good. Okay, so Robert, if you can briefly introduce yourself.
Yeah, so my name is Robert Vilkellis. I was originally born in California. Maybe you could tell by my accent. Probably you could not, because nobody knows what my accent is. I have lived in France. I have lived in England. And for the last 4 years, I've lived in London. And I love London because it is a global city where you can talk to so many different people from everywhere, every day, under more normal circumstances. But my background is in psychology and language sciences. I am certified as a master practitioner and master trainer of neuro-linguistic programming, which is a form of coaching, which is really all about understanding how do we think, why do we think the way that we think, and if you want to set a goal or achieve a goal or even change a behavior to be happier, how do you do that? That's what NLP is all about. That's what, for me, language is all about. It's all about understanding how do we connect with the world. And that's who I am.
And that's what we do at Come Online. We connect with the world.
Through language.
Yeah.
Hello, Shota.
Hi, Shota. Oh, and Masaya is also saying hi.
Hello.
Hi, Masaya. So, yeah, you mentioned about the London's Christmas. I guess it's again lockdown in London. How is the situation right now? How are you adapting the remote lifestyle?
Well, how is London right now? That is an excellent question. It's been very strange because we were one of the last European countries to, do something about the coronavirus back in March. We entered what was supposed to be a 3-week lockdown for 3 months. And then we went out of it. We were open for a while. In November, we had a lockdown. And then the government created this idea of different tier systems. So TIER, different levels for how the coronavirus should be handled. And London was put into tier 2. And then for 2 weeks, tier 2, no problem. Then suddenly tier 3, you cannot see people as much. You cannot go into restaurants. Restaurants are closed again. 5 days later, tier 4. And all the plans that the government had to let you go around, see family, was entirely scrapped. You couldn't do it anymore. So my Christmas was quite nice. I had a Zoom call with my parents on Christmas Eve. And I also had a Christmas dinner with my housemates, who I live with 3 other people. We don't really spend that much time together. So it was very nice to actually spend time with them. Although I have not done much cooking, especially not. My mother is Italian. Our Christmas meal is it's sort of like a soup, very simple. In England, they love turkey. And we bought a turkey the day before. You were supposed to let it defrost for 31 hours, apparently. One of my housemates read you could do 3 hours in cold water. Didn't work. We had a glacier, like a big chunk of ice just in the turkey. We decided to celebrate Christmas 2 days later with food, but it was very good when we did. So no regrets from me. But as a whole, it is a lot of staying at home. But this works, I think, well for me because all of my friends are online. And also what I think has been very exciting is that because so many companies are now online, I can have colleagues, people that I work with all over the world. I was in an education project in September with colleagues in every continent. My best friends from that project are in Argentina and Colombia. And they got paid what I got paid. And that is a lot more. London wage is so much higher than in Colombia or in Argentina. So I think it's a really exciting time for opportunities as well, because suddenly, no matter where you live, you can be entitled to the same earnings as somebody who lives in one of the most expensive cities in Europe. And I think that's really excellent.
Yeah. I like that you see the positive, and just like Ellie just commented, did this all in smiles. And why wouldn't we be when we're talking to each other?
Yeah, good that you have a housemate to celebrate the Christmas together with frozen turkey.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's not KFC, but
what's the Italian soup? I thought Italian people eat pasta for Christmas.
It is. I'm not sure. The way to describe it is that it's called tortellini, and tortellini is imagine. Okay, simple comparison. It's like gyoza, but it is not. Except you boil it in water. So you boil the gyoza in water, but it has a pasta outside, and you stuff the inside with something. So very similar. Yeah, I think that's a very similar comparison. But it's tortellini, Tortellini. Very delicious.
Yeah.
And
now I'm getting hungry now. Yeah, you added the letters. You're okay, Robert. You spelled it right. and actually, speaking of languages, Naho and I know you love languages and you study a lot of languages. And maybe right now, since you're on lockdown, you're studying some. What languages are you studying? And do you have any tips for language learners out there? Because a lot of people listening might be studying English or.
So on language learning, it's very funny because I actually used to hate languages. I grew up in I grew up in multiple countries. When I moved to France when I was 5, I was put into an international school, so I could learn in English, but I had to learn French. I did not. After 7 years, I acted in a play in French. I had no idea what I was saying. The one good thing about living there was that I understand. I think I have a very good ear for languages because of how I grew up. But I hated languages because I felt stupid. I felt, I'm so smart at everything else. But language is so hard. I can't say anything I want to say. So for many years, I struggled with that. And then when I studied as a coach, I became very excited about language because I began to wonder, if I speak English, how do I perceive the world differently from somebody who speaks Japanese as their mother tongue, or somebody from Italy, like my mother? Everywhere in the world has different languages, different qualities, and that's what got me very excited. And about 6 years ago, I started studying languages on Duolingo. I'm today will be day 2172.
Wow.
So I have not stopped. It is a bit of a problem, but I love that language learning has become so accessible in recent years. And my favorite languages really come down to the qualities, like the aesthetic qualities. How do they sound? How do they feel to me? I love Italian because it's my mother's language. That's the language I study the most deeply, so I can hold a conversation in Italian. I study Japanese to an extent, but it is very, very difficult because it is a language that you can know how to read or speak or read without knowing the other two. So it's very difficult, but I love kanji. I love the history that's contained within Japanese. And I also love a small European language called Georgian because it has a very beautiful writing system. When it comes to learning languages, though, what I think is the most important thing is sort of like what I was saying, you need to find a reason why it's important to you. It's very easy to say, I should learn French because it is useful, or I should learn Spanish because it is useful. But something being useful does not make it fun. It does not make it worthwhile. Finding something that makes a language special to you, makes it so that you want to experience it, that makes a huge difference. And some of my favorite music actually comes from a video game series called the Toho Project. And Matt knows, everybody, you guys both know this. And last year, a year and a half ago, when I was last in Japan, I discovered a circle called Akatsuki Records. And I've become a lot more excited about Japanese because when I listen to them sing, I want to know what they're saying. So finding a reason is so, so important, and finding ways to make it accessible. I like Disney songs as well. Disney songs are great because you can find the same song in 20 languages. And I have studied about a dozen languages by listening to Let It Go from Frozen, Savages from Pocahontas, and Show Yourself from Frozen 2. It's a lot of fun.
So you also sing in other languages?
Oh, I try. I try to sing along. It's a lot harder when all the voices are usually female. So I try to sing along, and they go like la la la, and I cannot go that high. But I like the music for what it is.
You're right, though. Music and languages work really nicely together.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just fun to sing together, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Let's move on to the next question. So I think you just graduated from University College London.
Mm-hmm.
We have listeners interested in how students select their university. So if I can ask, why did you choose to attend UCL? Yeah.
So I know that recently you had Gwen on the show. You've also interviewed Matt. And England, maybe Zane has said this in his interview, but the UK and US are very different. In the USA, you apply to university and you study there, and then you choose what you want to do one day, eventually, hopefully. In the UK, you apply to a university, but also a degree. So when I was in high school, in my final 2 years, I said I want to study psychology and language sciences, and I chose a very, very niche, very specific degree, and very few schools had it. So I applied to a number of schools, and you can apply to 5 in the UK, and I applied to UCL because I knew it was one of the top universities for psychology. It's one of the top universities for psychology in the UK. I believe it sometimes ranks number 1 in some years. And I had always lived very close to London, but I had never lived there. So for me, there was this excitement of what if I went to study in London? And when I applied, I eventually got an offer. I had to reach a certain number. My grades had to be good enough to go. And I got it. So I went. But for me, I think my biggest considerations for why did I choose to go to UCL instead of, for example, Oxford or University of Reading, which is a much smaller university, much farther away, is because I saw what the academics could give me, but also what the city could give me. I sometimes think, if I had gone to Oxford instead of UCL, Oxford is, everybody knows about Oxford. Oxford is huge. Cambridge is huge, but they're also not very big cities. It's, it is. I'm trying to think of maybe I don't know. Maybe it's like it's the equivalent of saying I could study in the University of Tokyo, or I could study in the University of Ibaraki Prefecture. Ibaraki Prefecture is connected to Tokyo. You can take the Tsukuba Express. It's connected. But if you want to have lots of opportunities that every night you can say, I will do this, living in the capital makes all that available to you. Living in a city that is connected but very far away, it's much harder. So for me, London not only gave me the experience of a top university, but it also gave me a connection to the world. And I've started a business while in London. I have done a lot of personal development, public speaking, and training while in London. This would not have happened if I had lived in Oxford. So for me, the city was one of the biggest reasons, as well as the school.
I share that with you, Robert. I chose UCLA, Los Angeles, for the city. So I'm right there with you. And we can all agree that the Come Online program is very international as well.
Yes.
That's the big draw for it, for students and mentors to come together from all over the world. Not maybe, it's not as big as London or Los Angeles, but it's a nice online community that is global.
Definitely.
So I share the same reasons with you, Robert, and the same feelings. Although Los Angeles, Tokyo, or London, I don't know. That's a tough choice between the best city. I don't think we should get into that now.
No, that's difficult. That's too difficult right now.
We're all represented here.
Yeah. We visited all three as well. At least two of us have.
That's right. Okay, yeah, easily be over 15 minutes. I knew
we could talk with Robert for another 2 hours. Keep him up till 4 a.m.
Okay, but this could be the last question. What is your life mission? What are your dreams for the future?
So, what is my life mission and what is my dream for the future? For me, what it has always come back to is education. I mentioned at the beginning that I'm certified as a master trainer and master practitioner of neurolinguistic programming. And the thing is that unusual? Is that strange that I'm 23 and I have this qualification? Yes, that is very, very, very strange. I am the youngest certified NLP master practitioner and trainer in the world, because very few people do it at a young age. Most people do it in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. But for me, it's more than a certification. For me, it is about a new life philosophy. When I started studying NLP, I was 16. And, school for me as a 16-year-old was, I'm in this classroom, I'm studying this material that I may use, probably never. And I'm surrounded by a bunch of people who, most of which I do not care for. Maybe I don't have a problem with them, but, they're here. And a small group of friends. And worst case scenario, lots of people that I don't like. When I went to study NLP, I realized that I suddenly was in an environment with 60 people in a room, and we were all friends. But more than that, we were all there adding to each other's learning. We worked with each other. We made our experience better. And because we were actually working on skills that were intended to, help work with each other's problems, we got to know each other really deeply and make a big difference with each other. And that's when I realized that education could be so much more than just learn stuff and other people also learn stuff. It is be with people, and the spirit of being with people is what enriches you and makes you happier. And I know for a fact that as a 16-year-old learning this stuff, anybody else can learn it too. If age was not a problem, it's just accessibility. What I learned is not available in most public schools or international schools or private schools or even universities. So my life mission then is to transform education to make it about the people that you are with, celebrating and appreciating the people that you are with, because when you do that, you learn the stuff so much better. But also, when you learn how to work with people around you, get along with people, and appreciate people around you, you can study anything you want at any other point in your life. And that will always be a foundation that you can come back to. So that's definitely my life mission. It's to transform education.
Hey, and that's why you've had such an impact on Come Online and our program contents that students can experience.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure in that statement there's a tagline in there for Come Online. That's true. Thank you for sharing. It's always super nice to hear that, since we all share that mentality.
Yeah, thank you, Robert. I'm kind of touched.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah,
glad.
so passionate.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, so this would be the last podcast for this year. We're gonna continue Common Radio next year to 2021, and we're gonna talk about more next week, but we're gonna start the crowdfunding next week. I guess next week we're gonna talk about the funding more. But until then, wish you guys have a happy new year.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
See you next week.
See you next week. Thanks again, Robert.
Goodbye.
Thank you,
Thanks
Robert.
for having me. Bye.
See you.
Talk soon.